All right. What's going on, everybody?
What's happening? What's happening? What's happening?
Hey.
Man, we got a lot of purple and gold in the building, but it's okay. Y'all gonna be okay.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
a lot of it's starting to light up. You must be real popular. Oh, we almost at 10. We got almost enough to do the cha-cha slide.
Almost.
And,
We've been trying to get to this cha-cha slide for a minute.
Yeah. Once we get to 15, we can do the electric slide, and then we're gonna do the wobble once we get to 20. So we'll be good. Hello everyone. My name is Jamie Aladdin Sims. I am a proud Prairie View alumnus and co-founder of My Degree is Black.
I love it. My name is J. Albert Nichols, the other co-founder of My Degree is Black. Excited to be here tonight, drinking my Gatorade.
I'm drinking my 48 bottles for $3.79.
You starting already? Oh, Lord. Here we go.
So I see it. Yeah. A water bottle matches her shirt. How dope is that?
You know,
it's crazy.
Oh man.
So let's get to it. John, tell them who we are and why we're here, buddy.
Oh, absolutely. All right. So y'all know how we do this. My Degree is Black TV, doing alumni talks, being able to share perspectives of our alumni from HBCUs, our prestigious historic institutions, as they share their experiences, not only as HBCU alum, but their HBCU experience on campus and all of the dope things that they're doing, you know, in their lives to propel the missions of HBCUs forward, which is in line with our My Degree is Black mission, which is to change the narratives, especially those negative stereotypes and stigmas that are associated, and problematic ones that are associated with the HBCU experience, by celebrating our culture and retelling our own stories, right? And so the only people that can do that are those that have experienced it. So we take our culture from the yard to the world. Yeah. Man, I'm getting good at this, man.
Man, you are. I'm glad I don't have to do it. Trust me. I'm just here for the fun, man. So, and that's what we're about to do. Speaking of fun, you know, on that advertisement that you made with Coach TaCho, she had on this nice yellow blouse. I was like, let me put on my yellow My Degree is Black shirt. You know, so I want to keep it aligned with what we got going here, because we pretty golden from that heel. The real heel.
Yes, sir.
I just want to say this real quick. Jamie holds all of the inventory for My Degree is Black. So I got like 2 shirts. I got this one, and then I got one I've been wearing for the past 3 years. 2 years. So I got a little hole in the arm, so I can't wear that one because I'd be scared if I get excited, then people gonna see the tear because I wore it so much. So I just had to come with a black shirt on.
Girl, we're not gonna entertain you because you got a tank top that you wear after you do 50 push-ups. So I'm not even gonna you know what I'm saying? So, I'm not going.
Boy, you have a formal shirt, man. Come on.
Boy, going in. Okay, I'm gonna shut up.
So, hey, listen, it's about 10 to 12 of you guys on the live. We want to do something real quick. Putting on his mask. We want to do something real quick. We want to ask you guys, please hit that share button and share this out. People need to know what we're talking about. That's the only way we're going to change the narrative. If we're able to spread the word to as many people as possible. High school students, parents, other alumni that just may not have had the experience. So it'll be great. Also, hit us up in the comments. Let us know what school you represent, what year you graduated, how you know Coach, because we know she invited the whole family and friends and all the alumni on Group Me. Like, everybody's probably about to get on here. So let us know where you're from. Even if you're not from Prairie View, we're going to show you love as well. So let's get down to business, if y'all don't mind. It's not even about me. It's not about John. It is about the young lady you guys see in the bottom middle of your screen here. We actually, okay, who is that? Taz White on there said PV.
You know.
I was gonna say, somebody with it. You know what I'm saying? So that's good stuff. We appreciate that.
Hey Taz, what's up, man?
So yeah, we last week we had a show with one of the hosts from HBCU Game Day, Stephen Gaither, and we had another Prairie View alumnus. We had Dr. Kenyatta Kafil from inside the HBCU lab, inside the HBCU sports lab, I'm sorry. And so we were just talking about athletes and inside sports at HBCUs, what that looks like, the excellence where HBCUs are starting to get known for education, but still kind of get a side eye when it comes to athletics. And we almost went 2 hours, and we didn't get to talk about some of the other sports, and especially volleyball and some of the women-dominated sports that we wanted to get to talk about because it was already going so long. So we're glad that you're able to continue the conversation with us and just your experience. So for the people to get to know you, we're going to do a segment called Raised and Made. Raised and Made is you just telling us pretty much where you were raised, side of town, city, state, high school, and then what made you, and we know what that means. So I'm gonna let you do that. Let the people know who you are.
All right. So I was raised Pasadena. I went to South Houston High School, so you can say I was raised Pasadena / South Houston. But of course, PVAMU made me for sure. No question.
Cool. Tell us a little about your experience in South Houston and Pasadena, 225 and all that good area over there, the pollution side of Houston.
Well, first of all, I was on the 45 side. that 225 is Stinkadena is what we call it, but I'm the 45 side.
Okay.
So I grew up maybe 10 minutes or so from South Houston. And at that time, South Houston was actually predominantly white and Hispanic, but it is now actually predominantly Black and Hispanic. So this Blackness that I'm in and that I'm understanding now really did not happen until I was made at PV, because, I was a nerd, but I was an athlete. But of course, back then I talked really proper. So it was like, oh, you're trying to be white, those stereotypes that come with that. But I was just a nerdy athlete, just using sports as my safe haven. And so I wasn't Black enough for the Black crowd, but I was an athlete. So that's where all the Black people were. So you forge those bonds, but really getting into my Blackness is where I have to say I was made at PV.
Okay. Tell us. So for me, I had this come to Jesus moment after my 10th grade year. I just wasn't. I was my foundational skills, and I was coachable in football, but I just wasn't growing big. And I started offensive line in middle school, and it just wasn't happening. And it didn't matter about the form anymore. I was just like, you know what? I'm about to take my talents to academics. And I was a nerd and an athlete, but then there was the athlete part.
At least you recognize it early. Most people recognize it too late.
So how did you balance that and realize, hey, I'm going for both. I don't have to segment myself into either an athlete or an academia.
Well, first of all, in my household, the standard was A's or B's, but B's were still bad. So in order to not have any excess pressure, any excess drama per se to go on in my household, I made sure that I took care of my studies. So I was in all AP classes. And actually I had a full ride to UT for academics actually, but I wanted to play sports. I played everything in high school. Well, all my life I played everything: soccer, volleyball, basketball, track, cross country. But volleyball is what I picked up the latest, which was 7th grade. Back then basketball, I had 3 brothers. So, you're playing basketball anywhere, you can always pick up basketball, but volleyball came around actually later. But I had a high school coach, Coach Garza, who told me that although I was good at all these other sports, volleyball would take me further than any other one. And she was correct. And I had some basketball offers as well, track, but because I picked up volleyball later, ultimately I said, well, let me do volleyball because I did it so late and I wanted more of it. And that's how I got on the route. I spent 2 years at San Jack. I got recruited. Well, I didn't get recruited by them actually. I didn't play club volleyball, which was it's a huge thing now, kind of like AAU basketball. And I had a basketball tournament one night. We won the tournament, and my coach was like, you need to go to this tryout. And I was like, I'm tired. And I'm like, it's an hour already in, like, you know, but I went anyway. And they gave me a scholarship then, offered me. And so I played 2 years at San Jack, and then I transferred to Prairie View and played there. So
nice. So what she's saying is, not only was she smart, she was, you know, multi-talented. You heard that multiple offer, right? Like, I could have went wherever I wanted to go.
Hey,
other places, but let me just, I'm gonna stick with
slight flex, bro. Like, it actually wasn't slight. It was pretty high key. Like, she was like, "Yo, I played all sports and I had scholarships in all of them." I'm like, oh, okay. I just told you that I quit football, and now you telling me you had scholarships. Oh my God!
I quit 8th grade year, but you know. I wouldn't even know. I ain't make it.
Look at you now, entrepreneur. See,
you know, look, if you can't play sports, you got to figure out how to do something.
That's true. That's true.
I follow people around.
So look, there was just, you talked about having 3 brothers, and I just, well, not just, but recently the documentary The Last Dance came out, and Jordan talked about how he really thought his brother was going to be that guy, and even his dad thought that when it came to baseball and some other sports. How was the competitive nature in your home, academically and athletically?
We never had that issue. No, I'm just no, my oldest brother was the best basketball player. But that's all he did. He just did basketball. And then my brother after that, he was really great in track, but pretty good in basketball. And my younger brother was really good in basketball. But I was all over the place. And then my oldest brother is actually easily the brain of the family, although me and him are super smart. He's definitely the brains. But competitive wise, I was the only girl. So I don't even think it was a competitive thing. It was just 3 boys and me.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did they boss you around? Were they protective? Like which side of it did you get?
It was a combination of both. I think that, you know, we were poor growing up, you know, so it was, you know, my mom had to work a lot. My dad left for a little while and then came back. And so we stayed with my grandma. So we were on welfare and all this stuff. And so it was like, while we had to stick together a lot of times, you know, in that environment where it's just the kids a lot of the time, it's more fighting and, you know, picking on each other and stuff like that. And then, you know, there's a 4-year gap between me and my younger brother, and then a 3 and a 2-year gap between the older ones. So at some point we end up just off trying to do our own thing. If that makes sense, just trying to, you know, grow up, make it out of there.
Yeah, definitely.
I just want to let you know too, as we continue to talk about Ever Attack You, that you have some people that have your back on here. Miss Cat B here. I know you, Cat. Don't.
Hey, Cat.
She said that's not what you were saying. So you got a lot of people that got your back on here. So we appreciate you having your squad on. I can't say nothing bad about you, but I wouldn't dare in the first place.
Don't try it.
Right, I know how y'all roll in Pasadena, right?
Yeah, Pasadena is what they say.
So let's talk about the transition from high school to PV. Well, not even PV to San Jack. Like, tell us about that whole transition, and then even how you got to PV. We might have a question in between that, but let me stop there.
Well, sports, first of all, was my safe haven. My home life was not great. Like I said, you know, we were poor. We moved, actually, I was born in Galveston and we lived in Brookshire, which is up the street from Prairie View, till I was 6, I believe. And then we moved to Pasadena, and it was my grandma, my 2 twin aunts, an aunt, me, my mom, and 4 kids in a 4-bedroom apartment. Me, my mom, my brothers basically had the master bedroom, basically. So my grandma helped take care of us, but, you know, welfare and all that stuff. So got to experience that. But then about 4 years later, my dad actually came back in the picture around when I was 9. And I think that's when I really super heavily got into sports. A lot of people know this, some people don't. But I'll share it with you guys. It's an open book here. But the reason why sports became so important to me and such an outlet was from when I was 9 to 13, my real dad actually molested me for those years. And so any chance I got, and that's why I played so many sports, any chance I got to get out the house was an opportunity to not only just perfect my craft, but it was an outlet to know that there were scholarships available if I was good enough, if I practiced hard enough, if I gave 100% enough, that I could eventually get out of that house. And so that's what my goal was. And then, like I told you about Coach Garza, who told me volleyball would take me further than the rest of the sports. And that, even though I was super tired from that, that basketball tournament, I knew that I had to go and at least try out. And then that gave me the gateway to basically getting my school paid for 4 years. So 2 years at San Jack. And then my last year at San Jack was really tough because I never went back home. Fortunately, I had, friends that helped me out through so much stuff. I was doing practices, but then I was going to Foot Locker working from 5 to 9 after practicing all day and just really getting in. But I had like a lot of friends along the way that were assisting me. So after my sophomore year, or my freshman year, I actually didn't play a lot at all. It was a super shock to me because it's never happened. But at that time, all my other teammates were playing club volleyball. I wasn't. I was just the athletic kid there. So there was so much to learn, and that was a huge bite of humble pie that I had to take, but I wanted to learn and I wanted to get better. So I took that in, and Jeff Ham was the assistant there who rode me till he couldn't ride me anymore. And of course, by my sophomore year, and then I had a couple of offers. Actually, North Carolina A&T was actually at the top of my list, but it was too cold. So I didn't choose there. But my last year at San Jack was just really, really, really tough because I had to take one class to transfer. And I was actually living in our locker room, but nobody knew that until maybe like the last month or so of the summer. And my friend Bernice, who's actually on here watching, she caught me sneaking into the locker room. And so I lived with her for that last month. So, and that was part of it, was the pride of not going back home to that house, regardless of what was going on, because my dad said I would never be anything. I would, whatever the case may be. And so it was like, I don't care what I do, but I'm not going back there. And so that's where that resiliency comes from. And then, so that's how I jumped to PV after San Jack.
Wow, there's so much I know. I was thinking that.
So
let's go.
Basically, you're gonna have to come back for a whole nother one because there's like 50 questions just from that part. Yeah, that's a lot. I was homeless a semester at Prairie View. I slept in the computer labs in C.O. Wilson. A couple of friends' floors, and like in the car, like it was family home, but don't want to come. Nobody knows, like that type of situation. And I get it, right? Like there's so many parallels, and I can as we get deeper into this conversation, I'm really interested to hear how much of that shows up on the court when you're working with these young athletes, right? Like how you are able to balance the grace and the accountability and the love. And like when we posted that picture of you with the article from PV, and somebody was like, "Hey, man,
so much in that picture," and I'm like,
And that article is hella fire. Like if you haven't checked it out, like it is off the chain.
I sent an email to our assistant sports information director, and I was like, because we had the conversation, but you never know how people mesh everything together. And I even sent an email. I said, "Man, that article was." Even though it was about me and I know the story, I'm like, it was phenomenal. Like he did an amazing job with that.
Yeah, I read it twice. I was like, yo, this is good stuff.
Good. So I have a question.
Okay.
And Jay, well, so you moved from San Jack. I caught myself. See, you're getting better. How did you end up at Prairie View? Like, what was that first? Like, how did you get introduced to HBCUs, and how did Prairie View become?
It wasn't as cold as A&T, is what she said earlier.
Well, number one, but I had two plugs into PV that I didn't know about. When I was at San Jack, there was a guy there who I think he might have been a counselor. He worked in academia or something, but his sister, Alex Newells, actually played at PV. And so before I went on a visit, I got to talk to her on the phone, and that got me interested. And then back in the days of MySpace, you know, you were talking to random people, and Jason Thibodeau randomly we connected through MySpace, and he was telling me about all the good things that Purview was and this and that. And at that point, I didn't even really understand the landscape of HBCU. I honestly did not. And so he was talking to me more about it. And ultimately, when I got down there on my visit, I loved the campus. The girls were a little standoffish. We joke about that all the time because the girls were so welcoming, but they were a little standoffish a little bit. But I did like Coach Pete, and I did like the campus. And when I talked to Thibodeau more about it, it was the choice to make. And so that's actually how I landed at PV. So it was a little backstory with that. And ultimately I chose PV. And then my first year, I actually had to sit out because at that time we only had one compliance officer for all 18 sports. And somehow, some way, some stuff got messed up. So I could do everything. I just couldn't travel. And so worked my butt off. And then took some classes over the summer, and me and my other teammate, Crystal Stigler, told Coach P, said, we're going to win you a championship next year. And that was it.
Wow.
And that we did.
Nice. I walked up in there like Brian in Miami. That's
after sitting out a year, that just gives you just so much more work ethic and drive, because you don't expect, I didn't expect that, coming, I didn't know anything about compliance and, completing all these steps or whatever I needed. I was just trying to get through the summer and get to school. And so, that was really great.
So before you got to Prairie View, had you heard of like the concept of HBCUs or Black institutions or anything like that before?
Nope, except on a different world, but I didn't, at that time I was still
so the post relatively
was right young. Yeah, you're relatively young, watching, and I say now I need to go back and watch a different world now that I've actually had the experience. Mm-hmm. But, it was just a show that I watched on TV. I didn't really understand it. And so, of course, when I got on campus, you could say it was a culture shock, right? Because in high school, we didn't have that many Black people, and then the Black people we did have, it was this group, but I played sports, and then we only connected through sports. I didn't get to go anywhere. I didn't get to hang out. I didn't get to do anything when I was in high school. So being on campus, fortunately for me, when I get on campus, football's already there, soccer's already there, and then I have my teammates. So, I skipped the UC process and all that stuff I was graded, as a junior, but I got immersed in it very, very, very fast.
Wow, that's you. I mean, you got it. That was right. That was our follow-up question. Was like, day one, you step on the yard. Mm-hmm. What happens?
And I was like, hey, okay.
These are different Black folks.
And like we had talked about earlier, I was like, you see the hood guys going to engineering class, making straight A's. You know what I mean? It was so many different levels of Black.
And then being an alumni fighting. Like,
class though. So I mean, it was just an array of Blackness there that was so untapped for me and my upbringing and and my childhood with high school and middle school and all of that. So it was a new world for me that I quickly embraced.
So to try to connect that a little bit, you in the article on the PVPanthers.com with Ed Bailey, you had mentioned about how you had to take a slice of humble pie because you never had sat on a bench. And so like embracing this new thing, and what you said when you took that slice of humble pie, you had to realize that you had to learn a lot. So now you're coming to a new environment, you didn't know the concept of HBCUs. What was that learning curve? How was that learning curve for you, and how did that impact how it shaped you into who you were on campus and so now?
I mean, I think when I first got there, I embraced it so heavily because it was just like, oh my God, like this is the whole new world. This is so great. And fortunately, I know Wakanda forever over here, and it was so great. And fortunately, sport led me, into that gateway. So I wasn't just, a freshman on campus.
Yeah.
Just wandering around. I already had a group of sisters there already to kind of show me the way. And I think I was just so in awe that there was a place there for us to be whoever we wanted to be, to showcase whatever talents that we may have, to be interested in whatever we wanted to be, and not be held back with the stereotype of, oh, you're not Black enough, or you talk like you're white, all these little things that I've had growing up. But now it was everybody was different, but of the same Black, if that makes sense. And I think that it made me into who I am, just an unapologetic Black woman. And without that HBCU experience, I could positively say I would not be the woman that I am right now in all my Blackness.
Thank you. I mean, you can say that 10 more times. I'm with it. I'm super Black. I love it. I love it.
Embracing.
This melanin is popping.
Popping, always.
Hey, we also want to throw out there to those that are watching, don't make this just all about us. If you guys have questions, or if you want to interact, we're all about interacting. You see, we're having a good time in here. It's just a living room conversation. So if you guys want to join in, please post in the comments. We'll throw it up there and we'll ask Coach. Or if you have any embarrassing stories that you want to share, we'll take that too. Like whatever.
Right. That's what I should have did. Went and looked at that friends list.
Oh, right.
Some things. It's all right.
Don't see my friends do me like that.
So bringing in surprise guests asking you questions.
But as you talk about like your Blackness and being an unapologetic Black woman, like Jamie and I have this conversation, and he joked earlier when we were talking offline, that's why I'm an entrepreneur. I've literally gotten fired from more jobs than I've been hired for. Like, I don't even know how that happens, but it does. And I'm super authentic in who I am, right? Mm-hmm. And so with you being in a place where not only are you influential, you make influence, you are impact, you represent so many. Do you ever feel like you have to choose between being TaCho, unapologetically Black, the head of the volleyball team, right? Like, and if you do, like, how do you navigate that? Like, how do you reconcile those moments if you even have them?
Well, I would say, fortunately for me, I do work at a HBCU. So the fine line that I tend to walk, I think it would be a little bit different if I probably worked in corporate America or worked for, a predominantly white company or anything like that. So fortunately, being at a HBCU, we're allowed, I should say, if that's the right word, to embrace everything Black, everything in our culture. So that part comes easy. But me as a person, I'm very assertive. My friends joke that I am like the subconscious, I say things that people are thinking, but I say them out loud. So it's a very fine line that I walk, I will say. I'm very opinionated, and I think a lot outside the box. So a lot of things that I say sometimes can be taken as an offense, but it's just either what I believe or, what I think. It's hard sometimes holding back. Especially with, social media or just opinions in general. Not necessarily when it comes to Black issues. I think, again, working at a HBCU, to me, that is a benefit to myself and my beliefs and what I stand in and how I communicate that, Black issues, police issues, and things like that. So fortunately for me, where I am, I'm allowed to do that. I definitely think if I worked in corporate America, I would be like you, probably fired from a number of jobs, because I stand in who I am, always, first and foremost. Does that sometimes get me in hot water a little bit? Yes, of course. But at the end of the day, I don't think that I would necessarily do anything fireable or anything like that. But I am going to be me at the end of the day. They joke around, in my office too, that, something needs to be said, I'm going to say it. AD there, assistant AD, because, one thing that I don't like is to talk in corners about maybe issues or things that can be improved. And then when we get in front of the people that can do the improving, nothing's being said.
How are we going to reach a solution?
Yes, I'm not that way at all. So of course, when I get into meetings and things like that, people are like shaking their heads like, but I'm like, at the end of the day, we're here for the student athlete. And if it's going to benefit my student athlete, I'm going to speak on it. Sometimes maybe that delivery is too assertive for other people, but what's needed to be said is being said. And so I think that's the seesaw back and forth a little bit about knowing when to be TaCho, knowing when to be a professional, but still not letting people run over you. And that is something that I don't do.
Right.
On or off the court.
Yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned the student athlete, and we were talking about the freedoms that you have at a HBCU, but you still don't have just all Black athletes. So how does that translate to because we know that you're respected. So how does that translate, and how does that impact them and your relationship with them?
So when I recruit, I'm very honest. I know a lot of times the recruiting process is not an honest job, I would say. But I'm very honest about who I am as a person, who I am as a coach, what you're going to get here, what you're going to get at a HBCU. When I bring them down on visits, I usually bring them down on Wednesday for hump day, because I want you to see the campus for what it is.
Yeah.
I'm not going to set up certain things so that your mind can think one thing, and then when you get on campus, it's something totally different. I want you to see all the Blackness that's going to be here, but I also want you to see how we've integrated so much. There's so many Asians on campus, Nigerians on campus, Caucasians on campus. And then with our amazing degrees, nursing, engineering, it's bringing so much diversity to the campus. And that's the same with sports, because when I played, I think we had one guy who was a pole vaulter who was Caucasian, and then you had like a couple of people on the baseball team, I think. Maybe. But for the most part, everybody was Black. And I think HBCUs, as much as they're a safe haven for us, they're also a safe haven for everybody else to come here and not be discriminated against, if that makes sense. And so that's the same thing. Me as a recruiter, I'm going after the best players, Black, white, Hispanic, whatever the case may be. I'm going to go after who I think is the best. And I think in retrospect, me being pushing HBCUs as much as I push HBCUs is that I don't think it's necessarily a responsibility for me to have African-American talent on my team. It's the responsibility of other coaches, other club coaches, to open that door to also top tier Black talent, not thinking of us as we're second hand or we're third hand.
Yeah.
It should be the mindset for African-American females, top tier African-American volleyball talent, to want to go to HBCUs. Does that close the door for non-African-Americans? No. We want the top talent, whoever they may be, but it shouldn't be closed off because you have this stigma of, top tier Black talent where PWIs are better, HBCUs aren't enough, which, if you know the history, we're only here because PWIs didn't even want us in to get educated, not even just the sports part, to even get educated. Right. And that's why we exist. So I think the responsibility lies on the outside forces, but for me, it's to garner a culture here to be whoever you want to be, but everybody's accepted here,
Yeah. Yo, that's so dope. We were just talking about how the pipeline is not there, elementary, middle school, high school, but we're talking about like sometimes you start to see them using uniforms in HBCU colors just to get the awareness out there, so that they can say, let me check this school out.
Yeah, it's really bad, to be honest, with recruiting and how your club coaches or high school coaches, or I would say even more Black suburbia, looking down on HBCUs as if they're second tier, and I hate that, because recruiting wise, trying to recruit around that is very difficult. I'm obviously very vocal, but sometimes with club coaches, you say something and then they don't want to send you anybody. Well, you weren't sending me anybody anyway, so I got to go around it anyway. But they'll do that. They'll try to send me the bench warmer on their third 18th team, and it's like, if she didn't play for you,
why you want to come play for
me? I want your top tier, and then just let them know I'm interested, because there's recruiting rules, so you can only talk to them June 15th going into their junior year. So prior to that, you're only really somewhat talking to club coaches or things like that. And it's like, let them know I'm interested, and let them decide. Let them come on campus. It's very rare that I recruit somebody and they come on campus and they don't want to come. I maybe in all these years, I would say maybe 6 or 7. But once they get on campus, but it's hard sometimes even getting them on campus because there's stereotypes already that you have, fell and things like that. But, I wish high school, would be better at even into middle school, letting them know that HBCU degrees are just as good as the next, and the experience there is even so much better, because like I told you on that quote, that platform for you to be number one for the time that you're there is something that you're not going to get in corporate America. It's going to be, a dogfight, trying to be noticed, trying to be seen. But here at HBCU, you're noticed and you're seen from the time you step on into the time you leave. And that's so important in shaping the Black men and women that we are.
Yeah. I kind of want to argue with you about that third string person and not one of them on the team, but I'm going to leave that alone for now.
Don't argue. I'm just saying, now, has somebody came and we've been able to develop them? Yes. But in a recruiting standpoint, if I come and watch you, you're not even playing. So why are you sending me this person? If you're not going to send them to a comparable school, which to me, the Southland, the bottom of the Sun Belt type schools are comparable to HBCUs, then don't send them to us.
Yeah. I guess I have sometimes a problem with guys that are good or women, anybody, athletes who are good. When I say guys, I'm talking about everybody, but they're good. They go to a school like I went to North Shore, like. Nobody's going to Channelview, so you're good and you're still on the bench. But even that bench warmer will go to Alabama or go wherever and sit on the bench for 4 years. Like, that's stupid to me. And you can come to PVAMU, you can come wherever, and you can show off your talent because you were good, but you just didn't play in high school.
Yeah.
So that's the part. And I wasn't really.
Well, that's why I do preach being a big fish in a smaller pond.
Yeah.
Now, of course, with us, we're not fully funded with scholarships. So we do depend on preferred walk-ons. So there has been a case where maybe they weren't playing at the club necessarily, but I got inside track, high school, the footage that they got and things like that. Okay. And then they were able to come walk on and, essentially either play or be really good on the scout side for us, which makes us better as a team. But that's how we have to operate with those, those type of kids.
Gotcha. We got a question, unless you from the audience. You cool with that, John?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
All right. Did you always want to be a coach? And when you started coaching, did you know the impact you were going to have on the volleyball family you have today?
Who you paid to put this nice question up here?
Call me Taz. Taz is nice. He ain't gonna do me wrong. So no, actually, when I was growing up, I actually wanted to be a lawyer. That was actually my career goal.
That assertiveness.
Yeah, I know. Everybody said, "Oh, I can totally see that." I definitely wanted to be a lawyer at a young age, but then I would say somewhere in between the 2 years or so that I spent at PV, coaching became ideal for me because I wanted to essentially help the kid that was like me, where sport was their outlet. Of course, you don't always get kids with a bad background or anything like that. Some come from very great homes and, volleyball is just fun and things like that. But you have other people where volleyball or sports in general essentially save people. And I wanted to somewhat be the savior for the girls that I would coach in the future. And then, no, I didn't really necessarily think about the impact. I'm sure if you interviewed all the girls that came under me, some would say, gosh, I hated playing for her. She was the meanest person alive. Some people are coaches now and they're like, oh, I get it. These girls don't listen. Tell me about it, So it varies on the spectrum. But I think the girls that have meant the most that have come through my program are the girls that I knew had the type of background that I had. And I said, at the end of the day, I'm going to make sure they get degreed. At the end of the day, whether they made it through my program 4 years or if they transferred in, regardless of that they were going to get degreed. And so I don't think I necessarily thought about the impact, but I knew internally what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
That's a good question, Taz.
Yeah, I appreciate that question. Anybody else, y'all can come in as well, because John and I will hog the questions all day long.
I got about 30 I done wrote down.
I say you're done with your head down.
Got some questions.
All I can see is them braids in the top of your head.
Too, like.
they nice though. They nice. They nice. No, so I'm interested to know two things. And for all of the people watching, when y'all catch this replay, it's definitely probably going to be a 2-episode type of situation. We have about 15 minutes left, and there's still so much to cover. But I did, like, along the lines of Jay, what you were just talking about it, and so many other people have talked about, like, kind of bringing our Black athletes back home, right? And bringing them back to HBCUs. Like, you shouldn't be riding the bench with all of the talent when there's a space here for you. But then also taking into account, Coach, what you just said about, it's not my job to make a whole Black team, right? Like, my job is to make a quality team. It's going to win the championship. My job is to cultivate the lives of these players, these athletes, and things like that. So I'm thinking from a recruitment perspective. I'm a student who's not yet in college, right? Many times on white, if I'm just looking at the team itself, right? So many times on at a historically white institution, you see more Black people than you see white people. Right, like a lot of us are playing in those spaces, right? Like, so you see some, right? But does the optics of it all, right? If I'm at a Black institution and this team isn't all Black, right? Like, how do we? I don't want to say control the narrative, but control the narrative, because if I'm just looking at the teams, right? Like, well, they kind of both look the same. Mm-hmm. Like, as an HBCU, like, how important is it, or how much responsibility do we, and when I say we, I'm talking about you and and all of the other sports athletes and things like that, like our coaches, like, how important is it, or to what end is there a responsibility to ensure that the Blackness, the richness of the HBCU, and the HBCU experience shows up in the team? Like, how do you do that but still be a good coach and not be like, well, let me do the easy thing and just paint everything Black? You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I think that the door has to always be open. And I think that's why I speak to, when I go and recruit, I'm going for the the best talent. I'm going for the best talent. And as you see, with the exception of maybe 3 or 4 Power 5 teams, most of their teams have their 2 or 3 all-stars are Black, right? They wouldn't exist in the framework that they exist and with the success that they have without anybody Black. But for us on our level, I think what our responsibility is to continue to preach that we're not a second tier conference or institution, that you can come here, play a sport that you love, get a degree in something that you want to get a degree in, and be okay with that. Not going to a PWI and then looking down and saying, I'm too good. So I think that's where we come in with dispelling that stereotype of I'm too good for a HBCU. Right? Because like you say, there's plenty of Black athletes who will sit at a SFA, who will sit at a Lamar, who will sit at a Texas State for 4 years, never play the sport they love in those 4 years. But for why?
Right.
Only because you're looking down on us. So be a big fish in a small pond. So I think for us, we have to keep that door open, that anybody can come here and flourish. Right? You don't have to settle for going to a PWI and not playing the sport you love. You can come somewhere where you can play, be an all-star, or even if you set the bench here and it didn't work out, you're getting something else with the culture here on campus that you're not going to get at a PWI. And I think that's where our responsibility is to continue to get in the minds of athletes and saying that this is a place that you can call home and not regret it or think it's somehow beneath you. So when I go out and recruit, like I say, I try to recruit everybody, anybody good, but especially for my Black athletes, Black women, I'm always preaching that big fish, small pond. This is a culture that you're going to get here. And fortunately too, I preach culture to the non-Black athletes. Like, this is something totally different here. When you first get here, you may feel uncomfortable depending on where you grew up and where you're coming from.
Right.
But you're going to find very quickly, it's a family reunion. regardless, you know, everybody's welcome here. And I think that is what I do as far as my responsibility as a recruiting, as a strong Black woman. You know, if you see 15 Black girls on the sideline, is because it's the 15 best that I found that year. If you see a mixed crowd, if you know, you see Caucasians, if you see Asians on there, if you see biracial girls on there, it's because that is the talent that I thought was the best for my team. But that door to my program is always open. It's never closed to someone non-Black, and it's never closed to top tier talent, mid-level talent, or anything like that. And I think that is how I run my program, if that makes sense.
Does.
I ain't got nothing else to
say. Bring the best people on.
You know, the door is always revolving. It's never closed. It's never closed, you know, and then it's open, you know, to anybody.
Yeah. It's you mentioned not being fully funded. And I remember my freshman year playing, we used to play football every Sunday. And there was this dude out there named Big E. And this dude was like 265, but he ran a 4.4. And I was like, how? Like, how are you so fast, bro? Literally. And so I was like, why don't you play for the team? He was like, can't get no scholarship, man. And I'm trying to get this engineering degree.
I know. It's hard out there, you know. I think, and I saw someone's question about what's the greatest challenge. Miss Woolridge, that's a great question, which leads into what you are saying. The greatest challenge is definitely funding. So essentially for volleyball, the NCAA says that we can give 12 full scholarships. I think when I was playing at PV, I think we maybe had 4.
How many on the team total?
Well, you have usually about 15. We carry about 20 because volleyball is just a little bit different now. But back then we had 12, 13 girls, you know, maybe 15 at the most. But maybe 4 of them were on scholarship. Some were financial aid, some full financial aid, some partial. So essentially you're packaging. Now, when you talk about the Southland, Sunbelt, PWIs, it's full 12 full scholarships, whether you coming from out the country, you know, any of that, they give you a waiver. So you don't have to worry about any of that. But at the end of every year, we're having to piece together, how do we get these girls some type of money? Now, outside of the 12, you can't give past the 12. So if I give somebody $1, they count toward my scholarship. And so in the SWAC, we're competing with everybody in the SWAC. I think is fully funded except for us, Pine Bluff, and Mississippi Valley as far as volleyball goes. Now you see our campus, it's a big, beautiful campus. We have these great facilities and all that, but scholarship wise, we are on the low end of that. And so now you're talking about competing for championships, trying to dethrone Alabama State. You know, Alabama A&M was in the championship, you know, 2 years ago, back to back. TSU, same thing. But these are all sports that can go out and say, I'm going to get these 12 girls and I can give them a full. I don't have to package this. I don't have to, you know, worry about, can I give her books? Can I add this on by going over budget? So that is, I mean, year in and year out, that's the hardest part, especially when you're out recruiting. And then you talk about APR, which is basically how long it takes us to graduate student athletes. It says you get 4 to 5. So you get 4 years to play, 5 to get out. You go past that, or you flunk out, or if you go and transfer and you're not at the right GPA, that all you take hits with that, which is where you see postseason bans and things like that. And so in order to not have that issue, you have to also be cautious of, maybe it's a senior who didn't pan out for 2 years. Do I keep her on money because it's going to affect my APR, or do I need to bring in a beast in here so I can go and win a championship? And so those are the struggles that we have to deal with all the time. And when you talk about a competition level, it can hurt you. But I'm also a no excuse maker. I'm just like, at the end of the day, we got to get it done with who we have here. But that is the biggest challenge by far, is the money.
Gotcha. Because we have a lot of alumnus on here, not only from Prairie View, but from just other HBCUs or different universities, what does that look like for us? Is there any way I know there are endowment funds and other ways, it might not be a sports scholarship itself, but just a scholarship that I wanted to go to this person because I support the volleyball team without me getting in trouble with NCAA rules or something. Is there some type of way that we can be a solution?
Yeah. So a lot of times when you see endowments and things like that, that is going strictly to the university. Now, is there a part of the university, of the development of the university, where they can garner some of those wages to athletics, but you have to think, if somebody says, I want my money to go to the engineering department, that money has to go to the engineering department. Now, can somebody come and say, I want to write a $100,000 check strictly to volleyball? They can do that. But when you think about, even with me graduating in 2007, if every athlete who left out of PV, graduated from PV, gave $500 a year, that would make a difference, especially from a scholarship standpoint. I would say a lot of alum that do give back, some give back to the totality of athletics, but mostly it's, football, basketball, the revenue sports, which they're fully funded. So when you're talking about scholarship wise, even though they're fully funded, for instance, football may carry 60 that are on a full, but they need 80 to really compete. So you still have 20 kids who are not getting maybe any assistance, maybe academic, maybe nothing, maybe just loans. So if you can give back in any type of way to athletics, even if it's to a specific program, that would help us a lot. But that just across the board, not being fully funded is a hindrance. And I think with PV in itself, we've always done more with less. And I think that's a little bit of the stigma, is that, we can still win championships even though they're not fully funded, and realistically, as the world turns, that excuse is down here, you know what I mean? So giving back, if there's a particular sport that you want to give back to that is not fully funded, helping them out, and then saying, I want it to go toward a scholarship. I have a friend of mine who graduated from HBCU, and he just asked if he could give some type of book voucher, like $1,000 book vouchers each year, and he was going to kind of work around the athletic programs across the SWAC, or the MEAC. And I said, $1,000 for books is a lot, for anybody. So any little bit that can help to ease the financial burden of these athletes to come and do the sport that they love on campus and get their degree is a benefit to us, for sure.
Yeah. Well, John has done this to me many times without my approval. We were at a high school, and he was like, "Yo, we about to give out this many scholarships," and I was like, "Oh, what's the budget look like, bro?" So I'm on here live committing to $250 to the volleyball program. I know it's like a
no, that's a book for somebody.
But my degree is black. At least $250. We're gonna give to that.
Yes, I'll send you a link where it'll go direct.
She's like, come on.
Our development fund, so nobody else can touch it. It's straight volleyball, and definitely will make sure that whichever girl receives that, they give you a shout out for that, because we know the financial burden of going to college. It's not easy. The sports, is a good way. Really, academics is the easiest way to get free money for 4 years.
Man, I was blessed. I had overpayment checks.
Catch that down to Katie Mills.
No, so my parents found out that I had overpayment checks, and it got bad because the point was, if I got full ride, if I was able to get a full ride to whatever school, then they would buy me a new car sophomore year. So they did, but then junior year, my dad was like, "What's these checks coming in?" And I was like, "Ain't this about a?" And it was like, "I need you to put in on the car note." What?
That's not what we signed up for, bro.
That's not what we signed up for.
Just like black parents to renege on a deal.
I was listening to you talk about how sports for you was a way out, and I'm thinking, like, as it relates to how we have conversations about black athletes or black kids' bodies that want to play sports, right? Like, there is this kind of divide, right? Like, there are the academics, right? We got to do more than put kids on courts and put them in fields and, all of that type of stuff. Like, they need to use their brains, blah, blah, X, Y, and Z, right? And then you have some that are just like, this is their only way, out. And so I'm curious to know that, like, two things. One is, how has your experience, your personal experience from childhood to now where you are now, how does that show up on the court, right? And then the other side of that is kind of related to what we've been talking about the past 2 episodes is, so if we know that many of our young Black boys and girls are using sports as this is their way out, right? Like, and not just out of houses or situations, but like out, like, this is how I can move out of my community. This is how, like, all of those things. Do we as the Black community do them a disservice when we push them to go to these historically white institutions, knowing that there's only so many spots available after graduation? I mean, you know, at post high school, right, in the pro league, but then that you may or may not, many times, don't graduate, don't have a degree, you know, any of those things. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I think number one is that as parents or community, we have to be realistic. As I say, every athlete is an injury away from working a desk job, you know, and to avoid that per se is you have to push both. If they can commit all this time to getting better, to get recruited, they need to be doing the same thing with their books so that they can have, if God forbid or something, you know, an injury does happen, that's not all I had, that my life is now not over because sports is no longer in the picture for me. And that's where you see sometimes where you have athletes who will commit suicide or get to drugs or things like that because they have this injury. And I mean, it's a career-ending injury and there's nothing else to fall back on. And so I think it's important that we push both narratives, but we also have to push the narrative that if you're good, they will find you. The NFL, prime example, has so many HBCU alum playing there. And who would have thought, you know, one of the greatest receivers ever from Mississippi Valley of all places, you know, and we have Prairie View, a couple of guys in the NFL too. And I think it's, you know, the narrative of, well, I have to go here because that's the only way I'm going to go. And it's like, that's not true. If you're really that good, they're going to find you and you're going to have to put the same amount of work in to get there. But at the end of the day, you have to make sure that you have something to fall back on for sure. And as a community, I know a lot of times, well, I would say with PWIs, the huge thing in getting them there is, you know, the underhand money that, you know, you're given, you know, you pay mom's rent, you know, things like that. We should see those things come out at the end. And so
shout out to Reggie Bush. No, I'm
you know what I mean? You know, they tell it eventually, but that is the majority of the top tier talent that we're talking about, how they're getting them to commit to these big schools. And is, even if we were doing stuff under the table, we can afford to pay anybody's rent, you know, get them out of poverty so that your son or daughter can come and play for us. So I think that's another thing that, you know, we have to deal with, is that we talk about top tier athletes coming to us for nothing on the back end, with just to change the narrative of you can come here, be successful, and still go and fulfill your dreams. So that's one piece. And then the other piece, my own backstory comes out on the court. And I think that when I first started coaching, it was a little bit difficult for me to show that tenacity, show the passion that I had when I was a player for the success of my student athletes, and them not take offense to it, as if, you know, I'm picking on them, or I'm just hard on them all the time, you know. And it's like, I'm so passionate and I want them to do so well, but we're in the generation of entitlement, as we know. And so, you know, I know how hard I had to work with much less than they have around our campus now. You know, we had the sweat box, you know, we were doing our strength and conditioning, you know, we were getting together ourselves, trying to be better just so that we can win. And now they have these facilities, they have snack bars, they have, you know, all this food, you know, they just have so many resources. And so it took me kind of growing up through the coach role to be able to express, you know, that type of tenacity, and where it wasn't an offense to my athletes. And I think in the beginning it was, even though I'm just trying to push them to be better, but it's like, I know what it takes, you know, I've done it, we've done it, you know, type of mentality. And if you just do this, you can do it. If you don't, you know, I'm a no excuse type person. So even now, you know, that hasn't changed for sure. It's like, I'm going to tell you what needs to be done, and then this is how you need to do it so consistently to be, you know, like how we finished last year type thing. And so as you move these athletes through your program, it's literally all the time trying to find ways to reiterate the same message. You have to work hard, you have to be resilient, you have to be disciplined, and you have to have tenacity and a no excuse mindset in everything that you do in order to be successful. And some people hold on to that, and other people, you know, it's a mentality thing. So it's trying to change their mental. But I'm always passionate, and I am an athlete for and foremost. You know, I'm a competitor, and, you know, I want to be a winner. And so trying to relay that to athletes sometimes can be a task within itself. But the passion, as you can see from those pictures, is always there. The intensity is always there. Trying to relay that message.
I want to ask, how does that, well, first tell us your son's name and how old is he?
His name's Corey Tyson Cloud. I call him Tyson. Most people call him Tyson. His dad calls him Corey. His dad's family calls him Baby Corey, even though he'll be 9 in October. But it's because when he was small, he looked like his dad, and now he's like my twin.
Okay. Gotcha. So how do you translate that? Because I'm pretty sure he gets the tenacity and the
that's why they call him baby. They be poking.
My wife tells me sometimes, she's like, baby, you need to chill out. And it's not even me trying to project myself on them. It's more of, because they don't even see how great they are sometimes, and I just want to bring that out of them. But at the end of the day, like you said, they have to be able to receive that themselves. So what does that look like? It's one thing being a coach, but you're a 24/7 coach with Tyson, right? Like, so what does that look like, and how does that translate when you're teaching him just life in general?
So with him, I'm a firm believer in starting early. Maybe not a lot of people do that, but I started early with him. 10, 11 months, you know, the first time he snatched a bottle from me, it's like, nope, it's not funny. Like, you know, we're not doing that. And because I started it early, there was no terrible 2s, no terrible 3s, like, I don't play that. And so now at this point, like, he's a super good kid. We may have had like 3 incidents, you know, in all these years, but people laugh because they're like, you just give him a look, or, you know, just anything like that. And he's just right on the money. But, you know, I just try to knock out, and same with coaching, knock out bad habits before they become habits, if that makes sense. And I'm very open and honest with him about everything. You know, kids now, everything is everywhere on their telephone, you know, their cell phones, TVs, movies, shows, games. Everything that's in the world is out there for them. And so when he comes to me and poses questions, I give him the truth. Probably too raw of the truth. So he's going to be one of those kids, like when somebody's like, oh, babies come from birds. And he's like, no, my mom said, baby, like, I came out of her, you know, that type of stuff. So I'm just very open, you know, with him. And then especially now, you know, being a young Black kid, and I remember, I think somebody had a poster or a shirt or something that said, when do I go from being cute to a threat? If that makes sense. And it's a kind of a unique conversation I have to have with him because his dad's a cop. So we're having to have the 2 sides of the conversation, you know, because he wants to be a police officer, you know, when he's older, because his dad's a cop, you know, and then I'm telling him, well, you know, while that's great, you know, a lot of cops aren't, you know, right. And, you know, so we're having these, you know, real life conversations, you know, and in his mind, he's just like, you know, that's not right. You know, I want to save everybody and, you know, all that stuff. But I have to give him the reality of the situation of, it doesn't matter if your upbringing is, you know, super narrow and that your hands, you know, are up and you didn't do anything wrong. It does not mean that your life cannot be taken, or that because your dad's a cop. And so just having real conversations with him, just like my athletes, I'm very upfront. I don't lie to them. I'm like, you're never going to have to guess. I'm going to tell you what it is. And that's the same thing that I have to do with him, because we have to prepare them for this world, which is very unforgiving for anything. So, but as far as discipline issues, so far, we don't have no problems. I'm like, he was good in my stomach. He was good, you know, all the way up until I'm like, I hope he just not just flip the script. in teenage years or anything like that, because we're gonna have a problem. But so far so good, and the girls love them.
That's awesome. And I saw that you had mentioned in that article too about you had to make a decision about, hey, do I want to go be the head coach, and this is going to impact my family? And now it seems like, and I told this to some people earlier, even when I had my kids, like I never planned on letting my kids be a burden. They were just going to come along for the ride, and it was going to be us together. And it seems like that's what you're doing with him as well.
Yeah. So I was at the time when I got pregnant, I was the assistant and I was working part-time. But at the time, my husband at the time was saying that once when I got pregnant, then I would stay home for a year, even after he was born. And so that, I took time off, obviously. And so the decision was, am I going to make a salary here and then go where I know that at that time, his schedule, he's working at nights and he's on the street and all this stuff. And then I'm traveling all the time. Do I want to, do that? But a stepdaughter at the time. So it was like balancing 2 kids. And it was like, is it something that I really want to do? Or do I want to work a 9 to 5 and then just settle into this, married life or whatever? But mom life, 24/7, home life, stay at home wife, not for me. So I didn't even last year. I think it was like 10 and a half months. I was like, all right, I'm over it. And we got a nanny, at that time, who was a long time, family friend. And so I was fortunate to be able to have help while I did all these things that I did. And then, end up being, the right choice. And then even now not even now, because I've been divorced for a while, but even when he was 3 and 4 and 5 and not yet in school, to have a job where he can come and travel on the bus with us and, go to games because he's not in school and things like that. And so, that worked out better than having to find a daycare from 9 to 5 because I'm at a desk job. So it worked out perfectly.
Cool.
Good stuff. I have a question. I know we have to wrap up, but
on y'all time, whatever, it doesn't matter. I don't have nothing.
The people are still here, so why they still here?
Let's go.
Keep on going. But no, so you mentioned being a mother and being a coach and being somebody who is an advocate, who's passionate, like all of those things. I'm interested to know what is the experience like being a woman in college sports, being a Black woman in college sports, being a Black woman in HBCU college sport, like all of these different intersections. A Black woman in volleyball, right? Having to go recruit in areas that are dominated by a lot of women who may not look like you. Well, not may not, but don't look like you, right? Like what is that entire experience like? This is my first time having an opportunity to talk to a Black coach that's female. Tell me the good stuff. What happened?
Well, for sure, I think initially when you're out recruiting, making those connections that you need to make, but also not letting people play with you, if you know what I mean. Which goes back to, I don't want the 3rd, 4th, 5th string girl, come in here to play for me. I'm looking, to win. And so sometimes if you make a club coach mad or something, or they don't agree, then they won't send anybody to you. So you have to work these different avenues. So that's one. And then although volleyball has a lot of top tier Black talent, it's still, I would say, still probably predominantly white. And so the stereotype of not just white coaches knowing better, but actually male white coaches. And if you see some of the top tier programs, it's not a head coach that's a woman, Black or white, it's a man. So you have to, you're dealing with that. And men coaches are funny because it doesn't even matter if they just played club or if they've just played beach all their life. They come in with this notion that they know more than you because, in fact, they are a man. And then to me, my experience with Black athletes, because even when I go and I do camps and different things like that, I see that women in general take instruction from a man, no matter how he delivers it, like this. But from a woman, it's already here. a Black woman, it's now you get into the range of, oh, she's picking on me, or she's too aggressive, or she's this. And it's like, I'm delivering the same message, probably not even as crazy as he's delivering it, but it's the same message. But because it's coming from a Black woman, it's that stereotype of it's, she's bullying me. Like, some people even say that. And it's just like, I can't bully you to do anything. I'm just trying to make you better. But I would definitely say that. So a lot of times I'll go and research a little bit on what club they came from, who coached them, what they look like, kind of, what they were teaching you and things like that, because you have to, even though everybody comes and they'll say, oh, all my coaches were crazy, like this is nothing, but then they get here and it's like the same instruction and direction you're giving them, it's not perceived the same way. So you deal with that a lot, for sure. And then when they come here on campus, it's really trying to dispel that they're stagnant. Like, you're going to be better than what you are. But when everybody comes in the gym, everybody was a high school all-star. That's why you're here. Okay, now we have to push you to be better so that we can win. And sometimes there's this jump where freshmen don't make it. They don't jump from senior year to freshman year in college. It's too much of a jump for them. They're stagnant. A lot of that too is playing volleyball so early. 6th, 7th grade, they start. And by the time they're 14, they have knee braces, shoulder issues, they break down. And so it's just a lot going on. Fortunately, in the SWAC, we are dominated by women. I think only one school has a male coach at this time. Well, I think it might be all women now. It was one male coach the last year and then the year before that. So being at HBCU, it's, we're all in this together. But when you do go out and you play PWIs and things like that, the staffing looks much different. Right. And also the funds, they're able to have a recruiting coordinator, 3 assistants, pay for grad school for a grad assistant, and you have all these pieces. Wow. While we may get one full-time assistant and then maybe a part-time or somebody who wants to volunteer, but we don't have the money to provide for a grad assistant and things like that. And so all of that plays into so much when you think about it. But I love that being a Black woman and then coming off of a successful year like that we just had, and then a couple of years ago we had another good season, showing that we do know what we're talking about. Right. And then I can say my nemesis on the court anyway, the Alabama coach who came in from coaching the Air Force and playing at a PWI, but coming in and wrecking shop at Alabama State and turning, that program completely off the ground. But being a Black woman in this situation who knows what they're talking about is an advantage to us, especially when recruiting. Yeah. That's a good question.
Makes sense. Did you hear that? She said that was a great question, Jamie.
I thought it was too, bro. I actually was I was in that same alignment really with you, and I was gonna say that, but I didn't want to interrupt.
Oh, is that what it is? No.
Yeah. But I will say my follow-up question, because we see the memes and it's the truth, and the meme is not always just false and want to be funny, and it talks about the strength of the Black woman and how without them we wouldn't be where we are. And so in the midst of that, John had a podcast and it was talking about it wasn't just all talking about that, but it was how do the people like us, the men, how do we support Black women athletes? How do we support Black women coaches? Like, what do you need from us, again, as alumni, because that's what I am, and I love my school. So what advice could you give to the Black male to be that same support that you guys have been for us for so many years?
Oh, child. Just had a status about that, the Black man. But yes, the strength of a Black woman is and always will be unmatched. That's one of my favorite quotes. But I would say, especially for Black men, especially if you have Black daughters that are, into sports, you come and be present. Be present. You do see it more now, with volleyball, where it's the volley dad, that they're coming and they're supporting, but just being present, being there and supporting anything that your kids are doing or alumni are doing that is positive, out in the community, out in the sports, out at PV, supporting that and be present about that, putting it on your platforms like, such as this. There's so many alum who are so successful in so many avenues. And if there's a chance to put Prairie View on the spotlight, not just with volleyball, but doing so, I know, like I talked to y'all earlier about the stigma with PV alum is that more than any university, and especially HBCUs, we're always speaking negatively about our university out in the open, almost any chance we get. And so I think we need to spin that narrative, and then because there's so much positive happening, at the time. And I do think for alum, our number one jobs are to give it back, and that is to support. I mean, there's nothing like seeing alums in the stands who are supporting win, lose, or draw, because that's what the other schools do. You see them crying and, everything, they're moving with the movement, win, lose, or draw. They're there in the stands and packing it out. And I think that's so, so important. And I think with men, as the leaders that y'all are, the leaders that we want you to be, the leaders that y'all need to be, so many people would follow you with that, and changing that stigma that there's not all this just negative stuff when it comes to university, but there's so much positive there that we can highlight, and to use your platforms to do that, reaching out to the different coaches and things like that. Because there's so many great things going on. And so to have a platform like this and you guys are using it the way you are and donating $250, that is, but if more of our alum, because like I said, they have so many avenues that they're so successful with and so many platforms that they can use to do that. I think DJ Rogers, he does a good job at that, always, trying to and do things like that. He's came out and stuff to support. So I think just doing that, especially being male, and leaders per se, that people will follow you. And I think as alum, if we continue to highlight the positive and move with whatever change that may happen, that others will follow.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. Me and my son went to see them play you. Anytime y'all play U of H, Rice, TSU,
so
we have an open schedule.
Or no, I think did you come to TSU last year?
We came to the U of H game.
Oh, the U of H game. Okay, that was we played them 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
2 or 3 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
It took them a while to play us again. A few years ago, we were going to like a 5th set, and our middle actually tore her ACL, but we were like ready, and they did not play us for a while. I mean, they do not like that. Last year we went 5 with Sam Houston, which was great. We went 5 with like Cal, somebody, or Cal Fullerton, and just different schools that back when I played, we didn't stand a chance against them, but the gap has closed. It really has, and that's why you see these upsets. But if you just think about it, if we had the funds and the scholarships, where somebody won't go take a partial because we can't give them a full, or whatever that landscape is, that it will bridge that gap even more for us to have more of these upsets, and when athletes see that even more, because a lot of those schools, they broadcast it, they broadcast those games and stuff. I mean, when we went 5 with Sam, that was one of the most talked about moments for a really long time. And people are like, y'all are going to win this WAC. Like, we're like, oh, well, yeah, great. But we were consistently, like, literally playing these teams so well and just almost, beating them. Where schools where you have girls say, oh, I saw the Sam Houston game, because before it was like, we play Sam and it's like, you already know it's 3-0, it's done. But now we're building teams where we either are competing or winning. And so when other young girls get to see that, it's like, okay, I can go here and actually do something. Like the volleyball here is still good. It's not, super low tier as people would have you to believe.
Gotcha. So the people want to know, when you do win these back-to-back select championships, are you about to take because you know how coaches do, I mean, I'm not going to say how coaches do. Y'all just get these offers as soon as you win a championship.
Okay, so
we're trying to get an exclusive right here. Are you leaving PV when you get the back-to-back?
I would never coach for another HBCU or another school in general. I would never coach for PWI at all. And I definitely wouldn't coach another HBCU. And honestly, I probably am only coaching for maybe 5 to 6 more years. I've literally been doing it since 2008. And I want to win a couple of championships before it's all said and done, especially getting a taste of being in the championship last season, which we hadn't even experienced since I was a player in the championship winning. Yeah. And
Hall of Famer, by the way, just want to throw that out there.
2-time, actually.
Oh!
You see the flex? You see that flex?
Hands on the head while you working on the foot.
Hey. Put some respect on it.
Hey, come on. That's the word.
But yeah, no, I am about HBCUs. Again, like I said earlier, whether it's Black talent or any other nationality out there, it's an open door for us to be here and play the sport that we love. And so I wouldn't, because I'm so about the HBCU life, it would be contradictory for me to coach anywhere else. And then after I coach, hopefully I can get onto the administrative side in athletics. But eventually, I want to actually be an event planner. It is my actual end goal. Yeah. So I'm like 15 years of coaching, 15, 16 years of coaching is good. Maybe 4 years doing administrative, maybe like a SWA or assistant AD or something. And then after that, I'm done with athletics.
Okay.
I'm done molding the future generation after that.
Well, I have one quick question.
Yeah.
So that we know, you talked about us being able to support you and showing up and all of that stuff. Is there any decisions on what sports are going to look like given COVID now? And like, how do we support doing that? Is that, like.
Whew. Okay. So with COVID, it's really up in the air. As you see, there's, you have, like, I think it was the SEC or some SEC said, we're just going to do interconference. And then you had the MEAC say no sports at all in the fall. You've had, I think, all junior colleges, pretty much all D3s pretty much are like, no. The SWAC said that, that we're going to, but then you have to think about, okay, if I had someone from the MEAC on my schedule, who do I get to, to fill that? So what you have is that if football is not played, then you're talking about a lot of guaranteed money that we will not have, especially if we're talking about the outer conference games, because that's, that essentially sustains a lot of our budget. If somehow the spring doesn't work out too, now you're talking about basketball, men and women's not garnering those same funds that we need. And so more importantly, funds would be really great to help out, because on the back end, if we don't have football and basketball for sure, we're losing a lot of money, if that makes sense. But with us so far, we're supposed to start August 3rd. It's going to be like a week process. They're going to be quarantined, they're going to get tested. It's a whole process that we have, like a whole week before they were even to get on the court. So we're doing, and other schools are doing, definitely I know in the SWAC itself, are the most safe that we can be is to test them when they get here, quarantine them. We have a system showing who's been tested, who hasn't. We're personally delivering meals to their front door, so you're not coming out anywhere, and just talking about the safety and what it means to just try to be safe during this time. Now, does that mean that once we get started, they say, okay, cut it out? We don't know, but as far as now, we're trying to move forward with it. As far as our conference goes, we're playing our full schedule as of right now. The Southland is playing their full schedule as of right now, but everything's subject to change because everything's so up in the air. But I would say definitely, or even if it's not just on the funds part, if we do get back on campus, if there's packages of sanitizing stuff, masks, different things like that, people could send, that's also great. Just little things like that. Yeah, some of those, we carrying 20 this year. Y'all can spare 20.
You were over. He bought like 50 of them. So
I need to get a shirt, by the way. I do need to get a shirt. And a mask too. I'll get both. But just as of now, until we know, it's just kind of a wait and see. And then even when we do talk about games, I don't know, depending on the facility, how many people they're letting in there, who can really come. I know most of our stuff will be live streamed. So, just watching, supporting.
Some watch parties.
Yes. So, hopefully we do, have a season. We're prepared if we don't, but we are also prepared if we do. So.
Gotcha. If you don't have a season, like the next year, right? So let's say worst case scenario plays out, there's no sports, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what does the following year look like? I know I gotta stop so we can continue going.
No, it's fine. I literally have nothing to say.
Want to finish kind of the story of it. Like, so this is how we support. Mm-hmm. But if we can't do that, then what happens next season? Like,
yeah, so you're looking at the NCAA now having to allow somebody who should have been a senior graduating, who didn't get to play. Now you're talking about their eligibility coming back. But what does that look like for the campus? Can they afford to give money to that senior, but you've also recruited somebody for the next year. Is outside scholarships possible to get maybe the seniors covered or the incoming athletes covered so that, you can have the team that you need to have? Do they even want to come back? Do they just want to graduate and be done? So those are kind of the questions, but it would fall from the NCAA saying, well, they didn't get a whole season. So, which typically they would say, just like in the spring, like some of the softball, baseball girls and stuff are saying, you can come back for that last semester type thing. But then you look into, well, what happened in the fall? Do I have to pay for my fall semester? Am I only getting my spring semester covered? Or maybe we don't have the funds to do either. So there's so many intricate details with that. But I would almost say the one thing I say for sure is if we don't have a fall season, you will look into seniors having an option to come back. But what does that look like as a university and your funds? That's two totally separate things. Yeah. So hopefully we do have a season. These girls are ready. They're ready to come back. They're ready to get it going.
Yeah. Good stuff.
I'm ready to see some sports anyway, but
no, I'm serious. I'm like, oh my goodness. But I'm just like, the basketball, they did the bubble thing. Yeah. So I'm interested to see how that works out, but we also don't have millions of dollars like right. The NBA does to create a bubble so that we can play. I'm sure some of the Power 5 schools can do that, which them doing voluntary workouts without testing first made no sense because they literally could test every other day if they wanted to. So that didn't make any sense. But I think with COVID, because the average person isn't dying from it because, our age, not really dying, young kids not really dying. I think that's why people are risking things more than they normally would. I think if you got it and you knew that it was like an 80% chance that you wouldn't make it, more people would be staying in the house, more people would be wearing masks and things like that. But because, if you don't have pre-existing conditions or, you're old or lung issues or things like that, then a lot of people are just like, well, it's something I can chance, if that makes sense. And because of that, then you have this situation where do we have fall sports? What about school? Do we send our kids back to school? Are we going to be online? So there's, so many.
It sounds like the number one thing, one of the things that people can do is stay their ass at home so we can all be done and then we can get back to sports.
Stay home or wear your mask. Don't be one of these no maskers. Just wear your mask if you got to go out.
And if you need to, go to mydegreeisblack.com and get it.
Yes. If you need one, they got you. And a matching shirt, I'm sure, because people like to match your shirt and your mask.
There you go.
Yeah. Or they like to match their shirt and their water, whatever.
I'm losing when it comes to water,
I'm just saying it's got the black, white, and red. Your shirt is black, white, and red. I'm like, I don't think that's a coincidence. But
by the way, this is a great shirt. Great shirt.
What you do? You want to pub? Who you got this shirt from? What's
actually, he's the wide receiver coach at Prairie View, actually. And you can go to, I think it's imso.black on IG or im.soblack, one of the two. And you can purchase from him.
Perfect. I'll be sure to send him an invoice for that plug.
Yeah. If anything you need me to plug, I got you. I'm probably one of the biggest Black-owned supporters ever. I'm always buying, literally my laundry detergent, my toothbrush, like everything.
Come on.
So y'all next.
And we appreciate you for supporting us. We really do. You've shown love from our inception, and we appreciate that.
Yeah.
For this platform. It's really dope.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, John, if you what they say?
Because you've been leaning down, writing a lot of questions.
Our hearts and minds ready. Our hearts and minds clear.
Now, forever hold your peace.
Oh man, no, we gonna have this conversation again. Like I start working out and all that, so I still gotta go get me a run in.
You see how boys are? I started working. You doing
boys? Look, let me tell you something. I'm coming out of quarantine fine.
we should all are you either coming fine or you coming with that quarantine 30.
I'm gonna be wintertime fine. You know what I'm saying? Like it's happening. You gonna get all this.
I'm gonna be Pasadena. I'm having that flannel on, but with the top
Right.
on.
There's everything out.
No t-shirt, nothing. Straight six pack.
High top shirt. Make sure you get it all together.
Yeah. So no, man, this was good. I've enjoyed it a lot. Great.
Likewise.
Great
Wow.
stuff.
So we end. We have an ending that we traditionally do all the time. We say our name. We say either a fun fact or a characteristic or whatever, the school you're from, and then we say my degree is Black. So we're going to do that now. I'll start, John, to go next, and then you'll finish us off because you're definitely last and you're definitely not least. So we want to make sure that you finish us off with a bang. You don't use a lot of stuff. We're going to have to charge you.
I know, you have to start charging me. In my mental, I got it.
All right. I am Jamie Latin Sims. I am a proud Prairie View alumnus. I support the Prairie View A&M volleyball team and Coach TaCho, and I want this season to start so I can be up in there yelling with my kids. And my degree is Black.
All right. My name is J. Albert Nichols. I believe Black women are God.
Oh, look at, I'm stealing that too.
I sue people. And my degree is Black.
That's a good one. I'm TaCho Tyler. I am a mother, a coach, an unapologetic Black woman. I am from the Prairie View A&M University, the greatest university on the planet, and my degree is Black.